Hello. Uh, Today I'm going to be talking about uh, Framing the Frame, Embedded Narratives, Enabling Text in Frankenstein by Gregory O'Dea. The summary and notes. Um, for reference, all of the background pictures are my own, but some of the um, some of the pictures, the resolution got messed up a little bit, and so they're a bit stretched and they don't look that good, but it's fine. Um, so uh, Odea's text is a redefinition, I think, of the idea of frame narrative, looking at the common sense idea of it and trying to, I guess, reinterpret it in order for it to have a more impactful um, look at the texts that actually use frame narrative. I guess chronologically in order, the arguments that Gregory O'Dea uses are the idea of frame narrative needs to be rethought in a new, more helpful way. Then each of the sequences of framing in Frankenstein impact, shape, and enable the previous sequences. And then using that, the idea of there is a secret frame or sequence, which is Milton's Paradise Lost, which is used as a frame for the creature and its ethics and its worldview. And then for because it is the center of all of these frames, it is the ultimate frame for the novel, and it continues to strain outwards and affect and enable the other frames. Um, so O'Dea begins by arguing that the common sense understanding of frame narrative is unhelpful for a proper textual analysis of a frame narrative, and it does not help to explain why the frame itself exists in the first place. So the idea of the metaphorical concept of frame being something that is outside of the text and um, enhances or decorates the story that is within it, according to O'Dea, is not a helpful understanding of it, and rather wants to use the metaphorical concept of frame as the framework, which is within the structure. So O'Dea uses breaks the idea of frame into all of its definitions and goes by the two noun forms, a framework and a frame of reference. So borrowing the metaphor not from painting but from architecture, the idea of frame being something that is inside of a structure that enables the rest of the structure to be built. So using this, the reading the framing sequences in Frankenstein explained. The reading sequence, narrated by Robert Walton, which begins the transition from normality to alterity, is enabled and shaped, get to that, by narrative sequence. Then the action sequence, narrated by Victor Frankenstein, is simply the actions that take place chronologically, which is also enabled and shaped by narrative sequence. And then the narrative sequence, which is narrated by the creature, which is the narrative acts placed chronologically again and is shaped by previous sequences. I will say O'Dea doesn't actually go into too much detail about what the difference is between an action sequence and a narrative sequence without Frankenstein. In Frankenstein, it is just voiced or narrated by different people and one inside the other, but it's not actually explained what the difference is really. It's sort of both of them are the actions that take place chronologically, but yeah. And then through those three sequences, O'Dea argues that there is another frame that holds all of these together, which is Paradise Lost, which is read by the creature and allows the creature to understand the world around him. So reads a few books, but according to O'Dea, it is mostly Paradise Lost, which shapes his worldview and his understanding of good, evil, love. Do I have? Yes. So the creature sees itself as one who ought to be Frankenstein's Adam, but is instead more reminiscent of Milton's portrayal of Satan. Through rhetoric and the creature's language, he effectively creates a dichotomy between Adam and Satan, himself and Frankenstein, good and evil, and so many more dichotomies, which is almost 10 paragraphs, I think maybe 10 or 11 paragraphs of the 27 paragraphs in this article. So most of the text, almost a third of the text, is going over different ways that the creature explains himself to be a his understanding of what Paradise Lost means to his worldview, what it means to life in general, what it means to his ethics and his metaphysics, and all of these things. Um, and it doesn't actually, it doesn't actually continue the arguments. O'Dea never really uses it for the understanding of one different argument, but it is continuous, repetitive. Probably could have been shortened, but anyway, O'Dea argues that all of these dichotomies and the creature's understanding of Paradise Lost culminates in his argument to Frankenstein that in order to return to goodness, he needs to become more like Adam again, who he thinks he has moved away from. So innocence, which is Adam, he believes because of Frankenstein, God, he's moved away from that, and he now needs to find Eve, which will bring him back to his innocence. Yeah. So through this reading of the creature as someone who has created their own story using the framework of Paradise Lost, it then explains how the other two sequences, the reading sequence and the action sequence, are actually also framed by the creature and also framed by Paradise Lost. And so it sort of shows that Frankenstein itself is a story which has layers inside of it. And in the very center of it is Paradise Lost, which reaches its hands out into the rest of the story and sort of forces them to be what they are. Enables them, is the word that Gregory O'Dea uses mostly, enabling and shaping. So they can't happen without Paradise Lost happening. And they also wouldn't happen in the way that they did if it weren't for Paradise Lost happening in the way that it did. Due to Frankenstein listening to his monster tell the story, and then Walton listening to Frankenstein tell the monster's story. So Paradise Lost is at the very core of what Frankenstein is, what the book is. So O'Dea argues that through a new understanding of frame narrative, we can better understand the causal relationships that frames have on each other. And through reading Frankenstein in this lens, it shows a new frame in the text, that of Milton's Paradise Lost. So the idea of the frame reaching out from the center of the story, enabling and shaping other sequences of the text is the crucial thing to this entire article and the new understanding of frame narrative, which, according to O'Dea, allows a better understanding of frame narrative. I will say it is a good article. It does a very good job of recontextualizing, redefining the concept, but the language that is used is sometimes very repetitive, and the ideas as well. A lot of the time are not actually expanded upon, but simply restated in different ways, and such as how the creature understands Paradise Lost. It is 10 different paragraphs of the same thing, essentially, over and over and over again. And it never really actually gets into the argument of what that means for the text until way further down. Yeah. Cool. So how do I end the recording? That's not it.